Good evening, everybody. Let's just do the usual techie bit first. Not if you can hear me, as they say. That's a lyric, isn't it, from a song somewhere? Cool, excellent. Okay, great. Is there anyone at home? Good. Hear me and see me, that's great. So I'm just connecting. So Ellie message to say you should be listening but not have a camera. Emma message to say she's late home just cooking dinner. So maybe a few stragglers tonight. It's okay. Okay. Good. How are we doing? Right, let's catch up with how we are first of all. So last week I was chatting through with Sam on her session with Tom, and then we did a little demo with Renee, which is great. Where's Renee? Is Renee here? I saw you just now. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I thought I saw you just now. That's good. Yeah, excellent. I was going to ask a couple of questions, if that's all right. Sam, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Is that okay? If you switch your mic on a minute, is that all right?
That's okay, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, good. So last week we were chatting through where you got to, because it's like you got so far with Tom, but there was things still bubbling under the surface. So I'm interested to see, how have you been in the past week? Has that settled down? Has it got worse? Has it stayed the same? If you don't mind me asking, how's all that?
It's okay. I did try to write it down to try and remember more memories, but I feel a lot more settled. Okay, it's not bothering me anymore, but I'm still not 100% positive as to what happened, or the full details are still a bit sketchy. Okay. Although I do feel a lot more settled about it. It's not bothering me as much as it was initially.
Good. Yeah, that's what I was interested to hear you say, because I wanted everyone to hear that as well, that even if it feels like you haven't fully completed something, if you hit that spot and you have some kind of release, it will most of the time it will settle down, and they'll be like, well, it's still there, but I don't feel the effect of it anymore. Okay. So there's probably something there if you did want to explore deeper, but for now it's just okay. It's settled down, and that makes sense. Yeah. Good.
It has. I don't think about it much. I don't know. I just feel a lot more settled. I don't know how to explain it.
Settled's a good word. That's okay. Yeah. Everything's just more like this. That should be. That's all right. Good. Excellent. And in yourself, have you noticed any differences in yourself? What kind of, having gone through that and it's settled down, what kind of things have you maybe noticed? They may be very subtle, first of all, about anything, because you would have said something or to initiate that process to begin with. I wonder what differences you've noticed coming out of that since.
Well, the first thing is I think I'm a lot more patient.
Okay.
With myself, especially. I'm not like driven to always, like meet deadlines. I don't feel pressured, to run around all day and, and initially, I felt like everyone wanted a piece of me, but no, that doesn't bother me. I'm like, I'll get to it when I can, and I'll do my best, and that's all I can do. So that's one main difference I've noticed.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Yeah. And that often happens when there's just been, even if it doesn't seem directly connected, when there's been a general release of fear, anxiety, stress, tension, build up, whatever it may be, when there's been a general kind of release of pressure, everything kind of, as you say, settles down.
Yeah.
That kind of, whatever feeling, it's like, right. That seems to come more easily rather than, I have to do it. Okay. So that's good to hear you say that. That's quite a common thing. And again, it's really important to realize sometimes none of this has to make perfect sense sometimes. Okay. If you can, the feeling, take someone through whatever the mind takes them to and just be supportive and just keep that going, and then allow it to settle down, you still get the result. And that's something I've been trying to help get across to you, that you don't have to be super clever. You know, if you can just be kind and supportive and patient and create the right environment, as Sam was saying, it may be wobbly for a few days or a little while, but as it settles down, the person will come out of that usually just free.
It's actually quite surprising, you know, because initially I kept on complaining about procrastinating or not doing what I should do, not having the energy. But I don't know, you know, lately it just hasn't been a problem. You know, because I don't feel pressured to perform, I do perform.
Yes, it's just the big irony, isn't it?
It's weird.
I'm not a Buddhist, but it's that Buddhist quote, you know, the moment you let go of the thing you want, you actually get the thing you want after all, you know, it's just that, you know. And so good. That's good to hear. Excellent. Okay, great.
Okay.
And how did you get on doing having gone through what you went through, were you playing the therapist in the practice session last week or not? What role were you doing there?
I only managed to become, initially the person that was the therapist was Minnie. She was, and Tom was the patient. Okay. And she did an entire session. I only managed to do the last 40 minutes. So basically all I did with Minnie was the initial chat, you know. So tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm going to do the actual pre-induction, induction, deepener, and so forth. Brilliant.
Okay. I was just checking in to see, having gone through it yourself now, how different it helped you to feel when you begin to take someone else through it, because that's another thing I always look for.
I think the main thing I learned, you know, from my session with Tom, you know, was really to be patient, not only with myself, but with everyone else. I think sometimes, you know, our expectations are way, way, way too high. And when you become patient, you know, you have the time to talk. I don't know how to, you know, you listen better. You are more inclined to look at a person and notice what's happening with them.
Yeah.
You know, you're more open.
Absolutely. Good.
So even when I was watching Minnie with Tom, I got a lot out of it. You know, like Minnie was amazing. You know, she's very intuitive, and so when she gets where there's resistance, you know, she worked with him rather than with a script or, you know, with the idea of getting him to a certain place. And as a result, she got a lot of results. Good. So me just watching them, I learned a lot from both of them. So I don't know. I think it's also just being open, being receptive. So I think it helps when you go through that yourself to learn to be a bit more patient with yourself and others.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Sam. Brilliant. That's good. Something I was saying to the groups, I had a group here this weekend, was don't try and be a therapist. When I set them off for practices, don't try and be a therapist. Don't try to fix anybody. Just be a nice, friendly, intelligent person having a chat and putting into practice what we're talking about, and be inquisitive, you know, and just gently nudging along, inquisitive with no pressure. And you find the more you can do that, the more you relax, the person relaxes, and everything just opens up more easily. So yeah, it's good to hear you say that. Excellent, thanks. I was going to check in with Renee. Was Renee on my screen? You moved. Okay, there you are. Okay. Are you okay, Renee? If I can ask you a few questions, is that all right?
Yeah, all good.
Good. Okay, no worries. How have you been since last week? That was really good and very brave of you. Well done for that. How have you been in the past week? Let me just catch up with you.
I've been really good. I've also managed to identify a few other things, like which I've kind of like put things in place to help myself with, because of my health, I've always tried to try and eat healthy, which because of all the stress and everything that I've been under, I've not done that. And I noticed this thing that either I'm all or nothing. So either I'm doing it properly or I'm not doing it at all. And I thought, well, you know what, just doing some of it right is better than doing nothing. So it was a bit of a change there. But yeah, the session on Wednesday with Haley and Marie, and Haley helped me quite a bit. And it went better than I thought it would. I was still very nervous, but I did do it. And I've also done a few practice sessions with my sister and my niece, which has gone quite well. So
good.
I feel a lot better.
That's good. Just to hear you say that sentence, I wrote it down just then. Getting some of it right is better than nothing. That's so different than where you were a week or so ago. I don't know if you realize that.
I know.
Before, everything had to be
myself,
perfect and outstanding. Okay, now it's just like,
I know.
Yeah.
I said to myself, at least if I eat half health, because sometimes if I haven't gone for a walk or something, then I'll say, well, that I've messed that up, so I can just eat all this rubbish because I've thing. Whereas I kind of have a different attitude with that, with my eating and my healthiness now. Good. Even though that was part of it, but I kind of just worked that one out.
Excellent. All right, great. That's great. Because again, the same thing when you have like a big release like you did and a shift of thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, that there'll be an initial response to it, and then other little bits will come in. It doesn't mean life's miraculously instantly wonderful, but it means you can begin to see things differently and reassess things more logically and more consciously without that big fear behind it. So that's a really good, really nice example of how your own mind can begin to reassess things and see things differently. So yeah, good, excellent. Well done for that. That's good. And the nervousness practicing, yeah, that's okay. But this is not easy what we're doing. All right. So it just, the more you do it though, the easier it gets. There's two types of confidence, remember. One is the confidence, the belief in yourself. And the other one is the confidence that just comes from just doing it again and again. Yeah. The confidence from the competence of it. And that's just practice. The more you do things, the more you see it works, the easier that gets. That's for everybody as well. So good. Okay, excellent. I meant to catch up with Emma last time as well. Emma, we did that thing a few weeks ago. Where's Emma? Looking at my screen. Is Emma here? Oh yeah, there's Emma. Yeah, Emma, are you okay there? Can I ask you a couple of questions? Are you connected or not? I can't quite hear. Let's catch up with Emma to see how have you been since we did that thing a few weeks ago.
Don't think Emma's on the call. Sorry, Andrew.
Oh, I'm looking around thinking, but I can't. Sorry, thanks. Apologies. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. All right. When she's finished the dinner, we'll ask her. All right, so, okay, so how did you guys get on at the practice session? I wanted to check in those ones we did in front of everybody. So what did you find was easy? What did you find was difficult? What went well? What was a challenge? Anything at all? Let's have a quick chat to that for a while before we do anything else. Anybody got any questions, any comments, anything they want to say? I'll just ask a few questions if not. Anyone burning to talk or ask a question?
I think for me, when I did it, I kind of like get stuck when asking the question on how to continue the flow of the question to get to a specific point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did watch one of your videos go back and watch one of the videos, I think it was on module 4, or I think it was, where you were actually saying to find the fear and then find the missing things in there. And I just found that really, in the moment, because I think I'm anxious, I'm really finding difficult to identifying, okay, I can identify that's a fear, but then what's the missing thing in between?
Yeah. So if ever I don't know what to do next, I just ask the client. Okay. It may seem stupid, okay, and more simple. But if I'm puzzled, I think, well, you're telling me that there and that there. I wonder what the connection, what's the next bit? Just let your mind stay with that for a moment and just let me know the next thing that comes to mind. And because actually you'll find everything that the client says, it's there for a reason. It's so rare that there's anything which is completely random. The client will often say this is really random, but it's so rare there is a random thing there. So if ever I'm unsure from where I'm at, I'll just ask the client and let them make a connection. They'll usually give me something to go on. But
once you found the core belief, do you literally just go straight from there, or do you still keep digging?
It depends on the situation, really. I did the group we had here on Saturday. One of the students brought a friend along, and I knew nothing about it before. I just let's do it completely blind, so I don't know anything about it at all. But the person started talking, and the whole session lasted 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is quite funny because in the morning we've been talking about how to keep a session on time, and then I completely blew it in the demo. It just went over for a really long time. Okay, but I had the time to do it, so I didn't need to cut it short. Okay, but that client just had that's volunteer had so much stuff. I was just letting her just get it all out. And there's so many times when I could have jumped in and thought, right, let's go and do something there and say something there or do something here. But actually, just giving her that time and the space to just keep going, it was probably a good 45 minutes, an hour maybe, of me saying one word to her, 5 minutes of just going through it. So there was lots of memories she was describing, lots of fears, lots of core beliefs she was saying. But just because someone says it, it doesn't mean we need to jump in and fix it. So what I normally do to answer your question is, I can't wait until they run out of steam, emotional steam. When they're kind of gone through all that and they're like slowing down this whole wave of emotion, when it's an emotional thing, it doesn't have to be emotion, by the way, but when it is one of these things, just let all the emotions settle down. And then I'll begin to decide what to do next. So this particular lady, it was just endless experience after experience, release after release. Some of it was very physical, some of it's quite painful. She was experiencing, recalling some really strong physical sensations, lots of emotion, lots of fear, And it literally wasn't until maybe 5 minutes from the end when she finally let go of the little bit that pulled it all together. I was starting to wrap the session up because these guys were already well into their lunch break. And I was thinking, we've been going for a good hour and a half, hour and 3/4 here. I'll wrap this up and maybe we'll get back next weekend to finish it off. And I started to do that and her mind was going, no, we need to keep going. I went somewhere else. And on and on and on and on until just the last moment almost. She says, oh, I've just remembered something. And boom, this thing popped out. And then she described a particular scene that really just pulled everything together.
So that was all during hypnosis?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had probably 10, 15-minute chat with her and she started to get a bit emotional. So I said, I'll tell you what, just close your eyes. 30 seconds of just relaxing a bit to focus in really and then carry on. So she just went deeper and deeper and she was really out of it. No induction, just the more she described, the deeper she went, the more she was going into those scenes and memories. So the whole thing was just done like that, really, yeah. And the thing, I'm trying to answer your question, but the thing that made me keep going was there was a pattern of failure, making a mistake, letting people down, disappointment, sadness and fear and these kind of things. But every time we went through a memory, we got to the fear, but she'd skip away from the fear. She'd never quite explain what she was scared of. And that to me was like, hang on, there's something there. Because she's saying this, this, and this, but we still don't understand why she's scared or why if she 3 years old, she'd been making butter with her grandma. Grandma gives her the bowl of butter at the end of the day, and it's too heavy for her. It's got butter on her hands, it slips through the fingers, and she's absolutely terrified, but doesn't say what of. So I'm thinking, well, surely, yeah, nobody wants to drop a bowl of butter if you've been doing it all day long, but the intensity of the fear she was describing just didn't make sense. And then another thing, she's trying to fix something, make something better, and she smashes a family vase, trying to make it okay, and it smashes it. And then the fear, she tries a dress on that's too small for her, she can't get it off, so she's hiding behind the sofa. Strong fear. And it didn't make sense. So, because like, well, why would that be so scary? So I was just waiting and waiting and waiting to try and figure that out. And it took a blooming long time, but then her mind was going off in different directions and all sorts of things, and losing dogs and hospital scenes and all sorts, but they all tie together, This is why I still think it's a really good exercise for you guys. At some point, just practice free association in hypnosis. Don't try and do anything at all. Just get someone in hypnosis, just linking and connecting one memory to the next, and just watch the pattern, see what happens. Okay, it's so valuable to do that. you'll see how a person's mind links and connects things. And this client was doing it one after the other. And what you notice happens is they will give you little clues. A little memory will come with 2 or 3 elements that are close to what we're trying to get to. And then it'll back off. And then it'll be another one, it'll back off. Okay. And that's what our mind was doing. It's giving me all these little bits and pieces, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. But it took a blooming long time. And almost her running out of steam before she finally said, there's a family secret that nobody's ever supposed to talk about, you know. And then she was telling about that, you know. And then it started to think, okay, that makes sense now. That's why you can't say it. That's why you can't talk. That's why nobody believes you. That's why they think you're a liar. That's why you haven't got a voice. That's why this, and this, and this. It all kind of fit into place. Right. But it would have been very easy to jump in at any moment and try and fix things and resolve things. So even if someone reveals one of those core beliefs, if they've still got emotion going, I'll just let them keep going. And sometimes I'll usually just wait a little bit longer just to see, you know, because it may just be their mind will go somewhere else as well. I was going to record it, but some part of me said not to. I don't know. Maybe I wanted to keep it private for her because it was so intense. But I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm trying to convey sometimes how letting someone go through something is more important than trying to step in and do something. Does that make sense? That's the thing. Really important to get that across if you can. All right. And again, it's one of those things. The more you do it, the more you notice it, and also it depends, because there could have been a situation where you say, "Bang, we're right there. That's the core belief. That's the cause of it. Yeah, let's just get on it." It could be opposite to what I've just said. Okay, so hard to give rules, but we'll do some more demos and stuff over the next few weeks, and hopefully I'll try and explain it as we go and point it out to you. Yeah, good. It is tricky though, trying to figure out where do you start turning it around. There's a lady on this course. She's quite funny. Lithuania, I think. And she's terrified of leaving people. She calls it, says, I don't want to leave clients in the shithole. So it's become a bit of a joke. You take them down to this place, you get them to this barn where it's really horrible and they're going through the stuff. I cannot bear leaving them in the shithole. So it's like, right, you take people into the shithole, but you've got to get them out, okay? And it's just like, how long do you leave them there before you begin to pull them out and let go? Right? And it takes a bit of courage to do that. But once you've been through it yourself and you know there is a way out of the shithole, then it's easier to have the courage to do that. You know, Sam's nodding, yeah, which is great. Okay. I'm not sure that's a very clear answer there, Renee, but I'm trying to convey what it's like. Yeah, some of this just isn't neat and tidy. There aren't ticks and boxes. It's just it varies quite a bit. Well, I'll try and, as we do more demos, and I'll try and point out when I'm doing things to try and help you understand that as well. Good. Any other questions? Some of you must have gone through other things, thinking, "What do I do here? How do I do this?" Any other?
Andrew, so when I was working with Minnie last week, I was the client, and it was the first time I sort of ever experienced anything in hypnosis, short of relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a little bit of work. We were going through and we were trying to follow a feeling back, which I couldn't do. I could think of the feeling, but I couldn't find a memory to go back to. So basically she asked whether... when Minnie asked if I was feeling anything, and I did. I felt really like warm in my heart, and I had a bit of a strange feeling in my stomach. So we went back with that. Minnie asked whether there was sort of any colours or sort of sounds that went with it, and it was really weird. There was almost like a brown aura to my heart, and I had no idea why. Because why would it be brown? So we went back and basically we went into my heart, chipped away at the brown to reveal sort of like a fire, and then I went back to the fire, and I saw a young version of myself in a better image than I could ever imagine. Literally just the face, but that was sort of as far as we got. I wrote down some affirmations on some paper and we handed it to him, but he refused. So we gave it to him in the end. But short of feeling like, as soon as I saw myself, I went from feeling really warm to ice cold for no reason. And like he would barely look at me and things like that. It was really weird. But in that sort of scenario, is there anything we could have done to go sort of deeper with it or anything like that? It was, yeah, it was peculiar. And like when you said, "Oh, I'd love you to go back and just link memories," and it's just like, well, that was so random and weird. Like it was just, yeah, there was no sort of easy way to say, right, okay, well, this is how you go on to this bit with that. It was, yeah, it was
I
weird.
think based on comments from sessions you've done over the past few months, from the
Yeah,
practice session with Debbie in the happy place, and that I don't know what happened there, but no, it didn't. Something didn't happen, and then something else happened, and then the week before, not sure. Then Minnie's finally done that. There's something about the fact that if you find that a young child version of you and it's ice cold, you go from
yeah,
loving to ice cold. That there's something boxed up in there,
yeah,
right? So it's just taking a little while to unpeel it. That's all it is. All right. And this is why sometimes it's lovely if you can do it in one session, but sometimes it takes 3, 6 sessions to whatever, just to gently peel it away. So maybe there's more you could have done, but maybe that was just enough to even access that idea of that inner you. That's
I
probably,
mean, it was, yeah. No, it was the first time I properly got to see myself. It was very a ghoulish sort of Victorian child, but other than that,
okay.
yeah, no. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
no,
keep working with it.
what I would do in that situation is whenever you think of that ghoulish Victorian ice cold child, just practice sending like a loving feeling towards him. You know, just so almost like talking to him, reassuring, saying, "Look, I'm here. You know, whenever you want to talk, I'm here. Let me know what you got to say."
Yeah,
That kind of thing. And you can do the same in your sleep as well. Yeah, I don't really cover dreams too much in this course, but it's a whole incredible thing you can do with dreams. Is just ask yourself for a dream to start communicating, start hearing, start listening from that part of you. And that can be another way of beginning to bring things out as well. So
lovely.
yeah, but I think, yeah, to me that'd be a big success, big tick. It's progress, you know.
Oh, it certainly was. Yeah, yeah. It just was so peculiar. Like you see everyone else like go, yeah, I'm in the room, and I'm like, but I haven't got a room. It's so weird.
No, I think it's a good example, Tom. So well done for that. Well done, Minnie, as well, for whatever you did there to help him with that.
A lot.
Yeah. Because think of it, I mean, it'd be good to keep going, because that image, that inner image you've got there of ice cold, that's some part of you that just needs a lot of
Yeah,
love.
see, the child version that I saw wasn't ice cold. I went from feeling really, really warm, and I was sat by a radiator, but I went ice
Oh, you
cold. I
did. Sorry.
felt, yeah.
Apologies, I misunderstood. Okay, so that means within you is like there's something there, like a
Yeah, it was really weird. It was like a ghost had passed through me. It was weird.
Yeah.
Not that I've had that, but yeah.
Yeah, all right, great. But I'd say that's okay, because you've done that bit now. So now the shock or the fear of that will be less. So the next time you can go a bit more probably. Okay. But no, good. Perfect. Good example, because that does happen sometimes. Yeah, it's great when you get a really emotive person, first of all. But when you get someone like Tom's describing, that's okay. It just takes a little bit longer. And I can tell you, whenever Tom finally gets there, the exhilaration and the reward of doing that for Tom and whoever's working with him will be so great as well. It's just like there'll be some kind of big relief, some kind of big release going on there as well. All right. So it doesn't always happen step by step, neat and tidy. You know, like decorating a room. Sometimes it looks very unfinished for a while, okay, until you put the final coat on. And it's like, there we go. It's good. But no, good example. Thanks. Well done, Minnie. Well done, Tom. Good.
Cool. While we're talking about dreams, is it normal after a session, like say in that night or in subsequent nights, to have very vivid dreams?
It can be, yeah, but both ways. Sometimes good dreams, and sometimes fear dreams is the rest of the fear comes out in a dream as well. So it can go either way. Yeah. Did you have a vivid dream yourself then, Rennie?
Not me, but my sister has.
Okay. Yeah.
Hers have definitely been fear dreams.
After you doing a session with her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It depends what kind of thing you were doing with her, but if something doesn't resolve itself fully, that gets kind of triggered, your mind's going to try and sort it out in some way, or her mind is going to sort it out in some way. So it is quite normal. It's a question I ask clients nearly every time: if you had any memorable dreams lately, just check in with it just to see. Because what you can do then is use the feeling in the dream as the beginning of the next session. Okay. Right.
Right.
So that's probably what I do there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good. Any other questions at all? How do we all get on? Who doesn't normally speak? Who normally likes to hide behind the camera? I think everybody doesn't ask me a question. Oh, Emma's just joined. Okay. Good. See if Emma's logging on. Emma, can you hear me at all? It's connected to audio, I think.
Hiya, yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, Emma. All right, good.
Hi,
Perfect.
everyone.
Okay, good. Kids all fed?
Yes,
Jolly good. Well done.
thank you.
Sorry to put you right on the spot. I've been meaning to catch up with you a few weeks ago. That spontaneous thing. I just wanted to see how you've been since. How you've been feeling since we did that. Any benefits? Any changes? Anything that hasn't changed yet? Anything that has moved on? What would you say?
Felt quite like a few days after it, I was a bit like, felt kind of awkward and like horrible because it was in front of everyone, I think.
Yep.
So that was kind of playing on my mind, I think. Other than that, I kind of sort of refer back to it, like, well, to it and stuff. I think that's probably about it. I've not given it maybe as much thought as I would want to with everything that's going on.
That's okay. It's more like, because the general feeling of it, if I remember, was about a huge amount of pressure to have to do everything by yourself and not able to ask for help and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm thinking, how much of that has changed? Then you're feeling less pressure and maybe more able to ask for help at the moment. And have you noticed anything else still there? That's the thing.
I would say still the thought of it just makes me feel really awkward.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm probably giving myself like less of a hard time, like something random, like on a Thursday, my dad, I started going to the gym on a Thursday now. My dad invites us over for tea, and I can take the kids there, drop them off, go to the gym, come back, and he's cooked tea for us. And like before, that would just, I'd almost feel apologetic, like having to apologize to him, like, okay. Sorry that you have. And then I kind of have just been like, no, this is fine, and just more accepting of him offering to do that and not feeling bad about it. Whereas before, I know I would definitely be like, oh, sorry, so I know we keep coming over on a Thursday, and like just so stupid. But
okay,
even though he's offering it to me, I'll still feel bad. Whereas now I feel I'm like able to take a step back and just think, no, like this is fine. You're allowed to have someone to do this for you. So little things, yes. The actual physical act of still like going to someone and really being vulnerable and asking for help, I think I would still need to work on that.
Okay, great, well done. So a step in the right direction, okay, which is good. So that's a good example, because something's changed, but there's obviously something still there that needs a bit more. Okay, good. So again, follow-up session, second session, that'll be like you go a little bit deeper into that, and that's what the feedback will be. I've been able to accept help from my dad when he offered it without feeling quite so bad, or actually thinking, no, it's okay. But the thought of actually going out of my way to ask for it, yeah, that's still tricky. So that'll be the next stage. Okay, yeah, excellent. That's great. Yeah, good example.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Because it's really important you realize these things can go in stages, just a bit at a time. Just chip away a little bit at a time. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. All right. Remember, psychoanalysis, 2 sessions a week for 5 years. Psychotherapy, typically session a week for a couple of years. Counseling, 1 session a week, 3 to 6 months. Hypnotherapy, 1 hour. That's what everybody thinks, okay? And it doesn't always work out like that, right? You've got to allow people time to unwind. There's some things you can do very quickly, but a lot of things just give it time to unwind. Right? There's things we'll go through later on. Some did a stop smoking session yesterday. I actually recorded that one, so it should be interesting for you to listen to that. I'm pretty sure that'll be sorted in 1 session. There's some NLP stuff we'll go through, which we can do things pretty quickly. But when you're talking about these deeper therapeutic stuff, there are things you can do to manage the symptoms, but I just don't like doing that. I prefer to get to the bottom of it. So you got to allow yourself time for that. Good. Okay, cool. Thanks, Emma. Any other questions, comments on stuff? Let's go through fears or worries you've got at the moment. Anything you're worried about? You must have some fears. Doubts. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. It's part of being human, that.
Yeah, I'll speak. I don't mind speaking.
Okay.
Just, I suppose the session, I did my first big session because obviously I only started back in December. Did my first big session with Claire last week. She was very kind to be my client. And we did a regression. We had quite a long chat, actually, a good 20-minute chat, and we had the regression. And there was always that kind of little bit of panic, I think, in me, sort of thinking, oh, what do I need to do next? I tried to concentrate on her as much as possible. But then it got to the point of, oh, I feel like you said, don't worry about fixing it. I was like, I need to try and do something here because there's a lot of emotional stuff that I wanted to not leave her with. So we ended up comforting her small child, which afterwards she said was great. And then we spoke to the person that she had the grievance with and let her offload on behalf of her sort of child self. And we did it. I did it so that I think I remembered you saying that we could sort of try and give that to that person to see how it made them, so that you could experience how it felt for her. But the person, basically, she turned around and the person said, nah, I don't care. I actually don't care. So then I was a bit like, oh, okay. So probably should have carried on there, but I was a bit panicky about it. So we did the grains of sand thing. Is it grains of sand?
Yeah,
where I just made her put it all in her fist and let the sand go, so that then I brought her back, because I didn't want her left with it, kind of her offloading it to this person, but then them rejecting it, and then it was kind of felt a bit vague. So I was a little bit panicky. So my thing is like, what should I have done? And also how to deal with that in the future.
I think you did a great job there. And the reason I put that fist of sand thing after all those bits is so you can use it if that happens.
Right.
Because if it all goes to plan, it all works really well. But occasionally, if you get that kind of response where the person's going, yeah, well, so what? I don't care. Then it's like, well, now what do I do? So that whole being able to release is how you can deal with that. So I think you did. It sounds like you did a great job there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That's probably, without knowing the details and being there, that's probably what I would have suggested to do. Yeah.
Can I just ask? I don't know what the sand thing is.
Yeah, I'll come on to that in a second, because it's in the module 7 at the end. But I'll do a little group thing with you, a little group demo with that in a minute or two, if you want to. But it's the idea is, instead of, if it's something you hold on to, you can just let it go, rather than try and get a resolution. You can just let it go. That's the aim of it. But I'll take you through it in a minute as a group and see how you feel about it. Right. Cool. The thing I was going to say was, if you get someone who doesn't care in some way, sometimes I'll look for a chink in the armor. What they're saying, they don't care, but what does this person care about? What was important to this person? You know, what would they care about? What would make them care? And then if I can find that and bring that into it, then that sometimes can get the result as well. Because the net result you're looking for is from, if the client goes from being like this and the perpetrator is up here in somewhere, so they're feeling small or less than, you want to even up and switch. That's what you're looking for, really. Because quite often when that method flows well and you check in with the client, they'll often say, yeah, I feel, so tell me, you know, what's it like to be right now? Anything you're noticing right now? They'll often say, yeah, I feel taller, I feel bigger, I feel stronger, I feel like I'm looking in the eye, or they're smaller, I've got bigger. And it just happens quite naturally. Right? So if someone says, I don't care, if you can find out what they do care about and bring that into it and look for that chink, then often you'll see them go from, oh, I don't care, to actually, maybe I do care about that. And then it starts to even. So that's the only other thing possibly I might have done to see if I can find that. But apart from that, yeah. Sounds good, Catherine. So well done. Is Claire there? Claire here? I can't see Claire. Oh, Claire's here. Oh, that's Claire. Hi, Claire. Are you okay if I ask you a couple of questions about that? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yep, sure. So if you going through that, what was that like? You haven't got to tell me the details of the thing if you don't want to, but the actual...
I was actually surprised how effective some of the techniques were. They really helped.
Good, excellent. And even though the person didn't seem to care, how was that?
Not a surprise.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, not a surprise, yeah. But in the overall process of going through those techniques, still managed to get some kind of result, some kind of benefit you were looking for.
Yeah, I felt stronger afterwards. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you feel stronger. Yeah, good. So even if it doesn't always follow that tick, 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 you can still feel stronger just by going through some of the elements anyway. And that doing the fist to sound thing's really good. It's a good release, yeah. Because it's something you can use afterwards as well. All right. So okay, good. Thanks, Claire. That's
what I realized was how much you learn from being a client actually experiencing the techniques.
Yeah.
You learn more than just delivering them, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that was useful.
Good. Yeah, the more you can go through it, because you feel it and you feel the benefit and you feel the difficulty, you feel the resistance, you feel the fear, you feel the stress, you feel the relief, you feel everything as you go through it. And then you know. It's no longer words on a bit of paper. It's like you've lived it, and that's always much more powerful that way. So good. Excellent. Thanks, Claire. Great. Good. I have time. Any other quick questions? It's good to chat through this one because it's like you're going to get a range of different experiences here, from things that go really smoothly to things that seem difficult to things that get part way and not. Any other fears, worries? We're good for now. Okay. So these bits and pieces that we're talking about, I was going to chat through them just to try and fill in some of the details for you, why we do these things, and maybe some little subtles that come to mind. Just ask any questions as we go. Then we'll do the fist of sound bit as well. So there's the inner child bit. There's those little processes and techniques, which is when you get someone down to the bottom, and there's that student on my classroom course is saying, in the shithole, how do you bring them out of it again? Those bits there. And then what I call completing the loop. Okay, how do you bring it all back to where we started? I'm going to share my screen for a moment, just to make sure we covered all these bits. All right. Share this. There. Oops. I'm going to make sure I don't move my screen and talk at the same time, because that's going to screw up. This idea, working within the client's belief system. It's quite useful to remember this one. The idea being that doing it this way, if a client says something to you and you try and challenge their belief system straight away or go head to head with it, you're probably going to run into trouble. You're going to hit too much resistance too quickly. Right. So a far better way is to just step into the world of the client, step into their belief system and talk to them within that belief system. And then do the session within that belief system and then see if it changes by itself at the end of it. Okay, so if you think of topics to avoid in discussions, unless you like arguments, of politics, religion, we can add COVID to it nowadays and all that kind of business, right? There's things where, you know, people have strong opinions, okay? And it doesn't matter what you try and say or do, if they've got a strong opinion about something, then it's not going to change unless you can understand what their fundamental belief system is causing them to have that opinion, right? So if you have a client and their belief system seems radically different to yours, it's just really important not to judge and just accept that belief system and operate within it. So if someone starts talking in very religious terms, I'll use those religious terms with them. If they start talking in political terms, I'll use those terms with them. If they start talking anything, I'll just step into that belief system. I won't reinforce it for them, but I'll ask them the questions within that belief system. Say, instead of saying, well, I don't really believe that myself. Okay, I might say that at some point later on when I've got good rapport. But to begin with, just want to keep it within the same belief system. I think the example up here about cults is Alison's uncle. He's retired now, but he used to be he ran a charity busting people out of cults. So a family will come to him. They say, my son, my daughter has been all the money given away. They're in this cult somewhere. Can you help us get them back? And he would hire 2 or 3 ex-SAS guys to do a reconnaissance, and then he'd plan different strategies. Try and get the person to leave voluntarily. If not, they would do an extraction and get the person out, and then they'd have to debrief them to get them out of the cult way of thinking. Right? They wouldn't sit down and try and explain why the cult was wrong and why they should have different beliefs. They just put them in a room, as I said in the notes here, gave them all the accounts of the cult, where the money's gone to, and just leave them alone for a while until the person came to their own realization. You know, you join this cult, you give the money, this is where it went, they spent it on this, and this is what it's really about. Just, you know, have a look at it. See in a bit. Okay. And that was far more effective than trying to talk people out of it. Okay. So when you're with a client and it seems radically different to you, just step into their world for a while and operate within that belief system for a while. Does that make sense, everybody? You understand what I'm saying there?
Andrew, would you mind just giving another example in relation to that? Stepping into their belief system.
Okay. Okay, a memory has come to mind of a guy from a long, long time ago who said to me, when I see a girl, I get lots of sexual urges and I can't act upon them. And I said, well, tell me, you know, what's the problem? He says, well, my religion says I have to, I can't be sexual. I can't be intimate with a woman. I've got to be, I've got to control my urges, control my feelings, and be celibate. And he was like in his early 20s, you know. So instead of saying my beliefs about that, I was asking more questions about the belief system of the religion, of this upbringing, and just stepping into that, not disagreeing with it, not challenging it, just finding out more about it. Asking questions that in a way I thought would begin to highlight anomalies within that whole belief system. What made you begin to believe that was okay? You know, how did you learn to believe that? Other people think differently. I wonder what makes you think that this is the right way, you know? So things like that. Does that make sense? Rather than just trying to say, no, of course it's okay, you know? I want to step into that belief system and find out what he's holding on to that makes it real, you know? In religion, most major religions have that. They've got the holy book, they've got the prophet figure, and they've got the super being. Okay, so if someone believes in the words of the holy book, it doesn't matter what anybody says, you're never going to convince them differently. Yeah. So I would chat to the person in the terms within their own particular holy book, shall we say. If the person's culture, because of their family culture or they're brought up in a certain country that says it has to be done this way, I just ask them more questions about that. What makes that the right way? What causes everyone to think that way? What's it like living that way? You know, what's it like to be you living that way when other people in the same school or same neighborhood are living differently? Does that make sense? So it's those kind of things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, good, excellent, cool. This one here, I mean, sometimes a simple question can challenge someone's beliefs. Okay, remember this was a client. They said, "I'm stupid and worthless." I said, "Well, what makes you think that?" And they said, "It's true. Everybody tells me." So instead of saying, "No, you're not. Let's list all your strengths and let's list all those out," and doing that, you could do that. Okay, you know, positive coaching type thing. That'll be a very valid thing to do in a different situation. But I want to know what was making her believe that in the first place, so we could change it. So instead of trying to convince her otherwise, I just said, "Well, who's everybody?" You know, because people tend to generalize, you know. And then she said, "Well, actually, my mum." Okay. And instead of saying, "Well, why'd you believe your mum?" I just said, "Did you believe her?" Okay. And she said, "Well, yes." Yeah. And then it began to sink in. Hang on a minute. I chose to believe her, but I didn't need to. And the moment you got that tiny chink, that's all you need in that situation. You need that tiny little chink of someone, that tiny doubt of, hang on, I've been believing this, but do I really need to? The moment you get that, then you can ask questions and you can move into it. So that's the thing I often say in a session. If somebody says, "Oh, my mum said this, or my dad said this, or my teacher said this," I'll just say, "Well, and did you believe them?" And often they say, "Yeah." And just silence. Okay, just be silent for a moment. Or, okay, you believe them, yeah. And just sit with it for a moment and see what happens. And sometimes that's enough. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, another tip on while we're talking about introducing your own beliefs here. So again, this applies to religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, cultural beliefs, political beliefs, anything like that could be potentially jarring. Just keep your own opinions, keep your own beliefs out of it, unless you absolutely know the client is thinking in the same way. If someone starts using very spiritual terms and you understand them, you know those, then it's okay to use those, right? If they're using very religious terms, then I'd use those. But I wouldn't introduce any of that myself unless it actually came from the client. Okay.
Andrew?
Yes.
Could you, if you're trying to help them uncover how it could be different for them, perhaps, but due to their religious beliefs, could you say something along the lines of, "I wonder how different it would be if you didn't believe that," or is that too confrontational?
No, absolutely, because you're not saying, "Well, I believe this and you should believe this." You're just saying, ask them, "I wonder what it would be like if you didn't believe that." Yeah. And that's okay. And quite often they'll say, "Well, it'll be liberating. I'll be completely free, but I feel guilty because then I've got to go against my family or my whatever." So then then you've got like a chink, and then you've got a conflict you're trying to resolve then. Okay, so what does the client need to believe to be able to still be connected to the family, but have their own free beliefs? Yeah, but no, I'd happily say that kind of thing. Yeah. Once I knew, yeah. So yeah, good. That's good. Yeah. So quick recap on this inner child stuff, just so we understand what we're doing, why we're doing it. All right. So if you think of this little diagram, and we call it inner child, but it could be any age, right? Any age possible, any younger version. And sometimes when I've done children, I've done like a 7-year-old child doing inner child with their 5-year-old self. Right? So it doesn't have to be adult to the child, right? A younger version of yourself. Should call it younger you therapy or something. But imagine there's something, a particular incident or trauma or something that happens at a certain moment, and it holds you in time, holds that person stuck in time, trapped in time at that moment. So however the person may evolve in other areas, when a certain trigger is there and it accesses that particular thought, feeling, belief, idea, then that person kind of spontaneously regresses to that moment. The thoughts, the feelings, the model of the world, the perception of themselves and life is as it was back then. Okay, and sometimes you can manage it, sometimes it just takes over. Right? So if we were comparing this to that little pyramid model we did at the beginning and the library model, it's like certain memories, certain beliefs here. Inner child is a way of just using a visualization, whether it's a kinesthetic one or a visual one, to access a belief. Okay, a certain belief gets locked in at a certain age, a certain time, and the mind holds on to it as if it's a version of us at that age. Okay, now it depends on what you think of time and all that kind of stuff, and we'll discuss that later on. But it's as if that younger you is still alive and active in that way of thinking and feeling, right? And comes out now and again when triggered or provoked. So when we take our adult intellect or our more older intellect, connect it to that time, that level within ourselves where that belief, that idea was stuck or trapped or locked in or consolidated in some way, and you can connect to that, then you're setting that person free from that time, that moment. And that person can then emotionally evolve very, very quickly. They can grow up very, very quickly. That part of them can grow up. They've not been able to grow up because they've been stuck back in time. And one thing I do, I'm sure it's in the notes somewhere, one thing I do this with everybody when I do this, is if we do this inner child type thing, then the adult you goes back in time, connects with that younger you in some way, right? You do that healing thing, you do all those bits and pieces, the expressing and giving back. I'll go through those in a moment, right? And then, so you make that seem better in some way, so that the beliefs of the childlike part are no longer dominant. They're beginning to change in some way. So I'll leave a part of the adult you back there with that younger you, right? So it's not like you go back in time, you walk up to the inner child, you fix things and you say, right, bye, I'm off now, see you around. You don't do that. You kind of keep that adult you back there in time. So there's still that connection. Okay, but what I also do is say, bring part of that younger you into the present. Okay. And I usually say something like, imagine in a weird and wonderful way, time crosses over. So this part of this adult you can be back there in time with the younger you, and part of that younger you can come with you into your life now. And you'll often get a secondary reaction when you do that. There's the sad one, first of all, of the original memory. There's a bit of a healing one when the adult one connects. And then when you bring that younger one into the present as well, you get another one which is more like happy tears. It's like, if the person's in a good situation, say, what if you could bring that little you, that young you, into your family right now, into your life right now? Think about what that would be like. If you've already got children, I say, imagine them hanging out with your children, your family, your home. And I did it yesterday on Sunday. You'll see a different wave of emotion will come out. So check in, what's that like, the idea of doing that? And say it's like, what's like how it's supposed to be. It's warm, it's loving, it's how it's supposed to be. It feels safe. I can be myself, is what the person said. Yeah. I can be myself. I can go out and experiment and explore without being scared. Right. So again, answering some of the questions from earlier about how do you change things, sometimes you've just got to form these little connections, and the client will update themselves. So every time I do these inner child stuff, I will do that. So it's not just one way, I always make it two-way. Does that make sense, everybody? You get that idea? Adult part goes back, and the younger, you got this kind of time, like in my head, it's like a crisscross. Okay? Yeah. And that can be super effective, because then you're saying you're speeding up the process of that younger you, that inner childlike part is supported back then and can now grow up and come into the present, because you want it to be in the present, right? It's all about the present moment. That's what we're trying to do. We're changing the past so we can have a different present. That's what we're looking to do. Okay. Any quick questions on that? Are we okay with that idea? So I would just practice doing that. Okay. The demo I did on Saturday, I did that. Actually, I just remember now. That's why when I was trying to wrap everything up, and I did that, adult going back, young you, that was all lovely. I said, bring the little you into life now. And she says, no, I don't want to. Okay. I thought, oh, okay, tell me what's about that. And then she said something, and it's like that gave us the hook that we went around again another 40 minutes then. Okay. So if I didn't have time, I'd say, okay, you don't have to do that. Just think about the feeling, what that is. And then we'll pick that up next time. Is that okay? Yeah. But we had time, so I just went back into it. And then we resolved a whole another load of stuff. And then we could, when we finally came back, it was all okay. Everyone okay with that idea? Okay, just do it a few times and then watch what happens. Yeah, as I said earlier, when we're doing inner child, really, it's a belief, a memory with emotion wrapped around it, or a concept or an idea. There's lots of different ways of describing it. Something someone is believing. So the simplest way to do that, just for now, let the adult you, the one here with me, I always say that, just go back in time, back to that place, that room where that little you is the younger you. Let your mind just take us back there. I'll also go with you. Just feel, sense, picture, imagine walking up to that little you, just looking into her little eyes. Okay, we'll try and get that first of all. And then I started saying this next bit, and this is the bit I found was more effective. I'm trying to pick out to you and say there's some subtle bits here, but you may not realize how important they are. When you do this inner child bit, if you state to that inner child every single thing they've been telling you, whether it's from the conversation or aggression or anything so far, you say, I know what it's like to be you. I know what you're thinking, I know what you're feeling. I know that you feel whatever it is, and you just repeat every single thing you've covered so far. It hits home so much more deeply. You get this connection, and you get lots of release, and the person opens up. Okay. So rather than just inner child, let's go and say what you want to say, give a hug or something. If you can state all their fears, all their beliefs to that inner child, first of all, you stir up more emotion most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time you'll stir things up more, and you'll get this bigger connection, this bigger rapport thing. That's why I started doing that. Yeah, I know exactly what it's like to be you, because I am you. And that usually gets another one. I don't want you to feel alone anymore. Come to help you. I don't want you to feel scared and lonely and sad and afraid and guilty and ashamed and lonely and all those things. Come to help you so we can do it together. Yeah. I normally say there's some things we need to take care of, and we're going to take care of it together. And that's double-edged, because the client is saying it to themselves, but I'm also saying it to the client. Okay. Everybody okay with that little thing? That's why I do that. Right. And then I don't just assume that's worked, right? I'll check in. Say, now you're saying that, now you're doing that. How does that, what's that like? How does that seem? What I want is something like warmth, reassuring, safe, secure, supported. That's what ideally I'm looking for. Okay, if we get that, we just move on, right? Great, good. If, however, they say, I can't get close to the child doesn't want me to come now, nothing happens, I feel colder, it's like I can't get close, then I know we've got something else to deal with. Right? There's a fear there of connecting to that inner self. So if that does happen, again, you follow the feeling of that. Okay, that idea of trying to connect to that younger you, what's that like? And very often it might be he or she doesn't trust. Okay, right, that feeling of trust, tell me more about that. So we follow that feeling of trust, right? So you try and do something, it doesn't work. You don't give up and try something else. You find out why it doesn't work. What's the fear? What's the problem? I follow that. Make sense, everyone?
Andrew,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, with the following the feeling, and then it leads on to another feeling, and then you could go to somewhere else. And then I know me personally, that's when I get a bit like, because it's you're trying to write notes, and then you started off with one thing, and then it's gone to this, and now it's going here, and now it's going here, and that, I think that's like the overwhelming part for me, is where it's sort of like opens a can of worms, I guess. And it, obviously in your head, I know you shouldn't do it, but you think, oh, maybe it's going to go this way, and then it ends up going down different tangents. And then, kind of, Catherine said earlier, oh, I stopped then. And I think that, that's what I do, because I get to a point and it's almost like information overload, and then I just think, oh, I don't know what to do with all this.
Yeah.
But I guess from what you're saying, it's completely normal to just keep following each feeling, even if it's leading off somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I know you're talking about the circle. How do you then bring that, where it went off in such a tangent, and then you're trying to bring it back to that original thing? What is, like, how do you do that? Because that's where I just get like overload and overwhelmed, I think.
Sure. So again, my usual answer, it depends. Okay. But very often it just naturally comes back. If it doesn't, I'll just ask that question. So we start off talking about this and this, and your mind has connected us to this, and this. And I wonder what the connection is between where we are now and what we started with. We'll just ask them. Okay? And very often I tell you something, you think, oh, of course, never thought of that. I say, well, that feeling I've got now is just like when I'm in this situation. So, oh, right, okay. And there'll be a missing piece. So if it doesn't make sense to you, I just ask the client. I wouldn't say, I'm really stuck, can you tell me what to do? But in those terms, we say, we started here, we've been here, we talked about this. Excuse me, you mentioned that and that and that. I wonder what the connection is between where we've got to here and where we started. What's the connection between those feelings over there, I wonder? Give them a moment. And they'll often just tell you. So I wonder, if your mind's taken us all the way down here, I wonder what you need to think differently or feel differently to go from here over to there then. If that's the connection, what needs to happen, what needs to change? And most of the time they'll give you an answer. Occasionally they'll say, I don't know. It's fine. They'll say, well, I need to think this or feel this or stop believing this. Okay, all right. What needs to happen for that? But usually somewhere within the information, that there'll be some pointers for you. Right? But if you don't know, just ask first of all and see what happens. Okay, Emma? Have a go. Do that a few times and just watch what happens and see. Okay.
Yeah, I know on one of the groups that I was with, I think not last week, the week before, one of the girls did like actually ask that, and the person who was client was, they did just, I couldn't believe it. Like they like you said, they did just put it together. I guess it's having that confidence, isn't it? Then just asking it, and then not being scared that they're going to give you even more information. And then you're like, oh my God.
Right. And that might happen. And that happened to me on Saturday in front of a group of people. The person just kept giving more and more. And I'm pretty good at holding on to information. But my head was thinking, hang on, I'm getting to the point where I've got so many bits and pieces going on here that how are we going to reconcile this? But I just kept going with it. And actually it just came back together eventually. And this is part of going through it again and again, just learning to trust the process, but also trust that the client, trust that they know. The hypnosis, hypnotherapy myth, there's all this thing about subconscious. It's so much more conscious than people realize. I used to believe it was all subconscious, because everyone told me that, so I just believed it was. The more I began to study other things and realize actually that there's other ways of thinking about it, that actually you realize there's so much information is available, and it's just giving the client permission to make it available, make those connections. So you can ask a client a simple question like, I wonder what the connection is, and they'll just tell you the answer, right? I've got to go digging around in the subconscious, it's just there. Yeah. So that's just learning to trust that. All right. But yeah, have a go. Good question though.
Thank you.
Probably come back to that again in just a moment, but good.
Thank you.
This quick thing, this inner child stuff. When I first got into the hypno world, there's a little gang of hypnotherapists. Used to meet up in North London, and a lady called Penny Parks was part of that gang, and she wrote a book called Rescuing the Inner Child. I really like Penny. She's a Canadian lady, very lovely. And she created a whole therapy called Parks Inner Child Therapy, PICT therapy. And I read the books, and a series of written exercises where mostly designed for survivors of sexual abuse. So the adult you would take a piece of paper, write, dear little so-and-so, dear young so-and-so, writing to yourself, please tell me what it's like to be you. Tell me what you've been through. Tell me anything you want to tell me. I'm here. I'll just listen. Okay. So you write that down with a bit of paper. You leave a space, or you take a new piece of paper, and then you switch perspectives from the child part and you write back to the adult you. And it's a way of allowing all that stuff to come out. And then when you finish doing that, being the child, you leave a space or take a new piece of paper and say, thank you for talking to me. I'm always here for you, and that kind of thing. So you have this kind of conversation with yourself in that way. And I read the book and thought it was really lovely. And I just started doing that as a visualization. And I didn't know other people were doing inner child therapy and all that stuff. I found that out years later. But I just took ideas from Penny's book and turned it into an interactive visualization with the client. So if you want to, I like to go back to the source of things. If you want to find out where I first got the idea for this from, it's that book, Rescuing the Inner Child. So it's worth a read. It's good. And then she wrote one, The Counselor's Guide to it. I haven't read the guide to it, but it's probably, Penny's really good. So worth a read. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this now. You can read this yourselves, but you can do this as like a guided visualization with no interaction, but you take all the information, you just do the whole thing. Imagine the adult you talking to the younger you, saying some things they need to hear, that kind of thing. And that can be really healing as well. If you want to do a solution-focused approach to like an analytical type thing, merge them together, this can be quite nice. So I might do this, something like this, if I've done, let's say, a long chat, a long introductory chat with someone, and maybe there's not a lot of time to go deeper into it. Right? I don't like starting things if I know I'm going to be short time. I prefer to wait. So if you've had a really long chat, really long introductory conversation, maybe they've got lots of stuff to say, lots of stuff to talk about, but I want to do something to set the process going. I might just do a nice little induction, a little deep, a little visualization of talking to that younger you, And just saying something like, it's okay, we know you're there, I know you're here, we're coming to help you. And next time we meet, we'll pick it up from here. All right, just to set the scene. Okay, without any talking. And then the next session is kind of where you start from, you pick it up from that moment. Okay, so I found that works quite well. Just forming that little connection. Because you may have an hour set aside for a session, hour and a half. What if the person talks for an hour and a quarter? You know, what are you going to do then? So you want to do something to set that process going, but without getting too stuck into it. Yeah. So that can be quite a good thing to do.
Andrew, in a session that's like that, I'm assuming you've had a few of those, otherwise you wouldn't have used the example. How do you go about recording notes for the next session? And like, obviously, I'm assuming when you first started, it would have been pieces of paper and things like that. Like, going down the line, like, would you recommend us sort of having something that we put the information onto so you can sort of prep yourself beforehand, or?
I'll tell you what I did, what I learned to do. Okay, so when I first started, I tried to write down everything possible. I tried to write almost every sentence, every word, everything. And I ended up with pages and pages of notes. And then what I discovered was, even if I did look at those notes, even if I tried to study them next time, it didn't actually make a big difference. Unless it was something unfinished. If it's something I specifically need to pick up next time, I might just leave one word, one note in my diary. Remember that scene, remember that thing, talk about the mum, talk about school, talk about whatever it was, work thing, you know. I might a note like that. But all the details, I find I didn't actually need to refer to them, because all I do is just ask the client, how have you been this week? Where are you at? And they'd tell me, and then we'd go from that. So nowadays, I write very, very few notes, just little reminders as I'm going through a session. I don't do it face-to-face for some reason. On a Zoom call, I will. I think it helps me focus more on a Zoom call. Face-to-face, I'm just completely absorbed in it, with the person when you're in that same place. But once you start doing a few sessions with someone, you don't need to analyze your notes from last time and then go through it with them. I know other therapy models will disagree with that, but doing it this way, when you're allowing it to come from the client and just following their feelings in that moment, your notes become less and less important. So I'd say start off taking quite a few notes and then realize where you don't need them. And then gradually allow yourself to put more attention on the client rather than the notes, because you'll learn so much more when you just absorb yourself and focus on the client. Okay. That one, this demo I did the other day, apart from glancing at the clock a few times, I think for 2 hours, 20 minutes, I didn't take my eyes off that client's face. I was just completely focused in her world. And that allows you to get into a zone with the person. Right? So it's a tricky one, because you want to take notes and refer to it, but they can get in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I think I was just more worried that, like, I don't know, you go into the next session and it would almost break that wall like the bond you'd created if you'd have almost, like, if you're asking the same questions again and they're like, well, I told you last time, sort of. Yeah. It's just trying to, like, remember those certain things. Like, obviously, when you're first starting out, you're not going to have 14 clients a week sort of thing, but like, it's just like trying to think how to write everything down and process it. And yeah, I understand you don't need to write an awful lot, but it would be good to have a way to, because obviously one session might be 1 month and then the next one might not be 2 months, and it's just trying to keep it into the right place, I suppose.
Absolutely. But I would suggest you do that to begin with, just to learn and look at the words and look at the sentences they're using. But not saying you have to do that because of what you need to do it, but do it as a learning experience to begin with, and then gradually realize when you don't need to do it. Does that make sense, Tom, and everybody? Yeah. It takes time. And what I found one day, I remember I cleared up, I had like a wardrobe in my office, and I just throw the notes in the end of the session, throw them in, lock the door. And I decided to have a clear out one day. And literally, I looked, I thought, these notes were piled up waist high, stacked up from, this is after a few years. And I had a big, thick questionnaire I'd ask people. I thought, most of those, they've not come out there from the first time I put them in there. So why am I doing it? And then I had a sacrificial burning of them all. And then did it differently after that. But yeah, find what works for you. I remember for a while, I had all the different techniques I was using. I had them on the notes, and I'd like tick them off, say, yeah, I did that one, I've done that one, I could do that one, to try and help me think what to do next time. And I realized I was trying to overthink it. And if I could just sit with the client again, find out where they're at, and start from that was always really helpful. But a few keywords can be quite helpful if you need to pick something up from the time before. Good. So, sorry, this phrase, raw emotive content. Does everyone understand what I mean by that? I made that phrase up. It's trying to explain the difference between someone expressing a feeling in polite, socially acceptable terms compared to the absolute raw and edited version that someone might feel. Yeah. So the polite, socially acceptable version might be, it wasn't very nice when that happened, you know. What was it like? Not good. In what way not good? It just wasn't very nice. Yeah. But what they really want to say is, I felt absolutely destitute, scared, terrified. And the language will often get more colourful. I'm a bit cross about what happened. So that sounds quite polite. What do you really feel? I fucking hate them. So what they might say, okay. I wouldn't have a swear until the client does, but if they swear, I'll repeat it back to make them feel it's okay to swear. So what do you really feel like saying? Well, I feel like telling them to off. What do you mean? You know, tell them to fuck off. So well, tell them to fuck off then. Am I allowed to swear? Yeah, of course you're allowed to swear. Okay. And then I say, just think about that person. Say, just fuck off and leave me alone. Okay. And then when they can finally let it come out as raw emotional content, you'll see the kind of deeper release coming out. Right? So the raw emotive content is just looking, what's the real feeling, not the polite, unedited, filtered, socially acceptable version. What's the real feeling? And that's the one we're looking for, because that's the one that will set someone free. And that's the one that will get the deeper ab reactions than doing it this way. So going back to the question Renee said at the beginning, you're looking for core beliefs, but I'm also looking for what's the raw feeling here? Okay, what's the real raw feeling this person has held on to? They've never been able to express in some way. Was niggling away inside. That's what we're looking for. Oh yeah, I said it just there. Okay. So when you find that raw emotive content, the next step, what I'm looking to do is help them get it out. Okay. Sometimes just by describing it, it'll come out. Just by going through the memory, talking, verbalizing, that's okay. But as you're beginning to see now, if you can express that to the direction it came from. So let's say something happened at school, teacher criticizing someone, putting them down in some way, and saying, what's it like to be in that situation in front of that whole class there? And the teacher's criticizing you, what's that like? You know, tell me about any feelings there. And they're saying, well, yeah, I feel so angry. I just hate that teacher in that moment because they're making me feel really horrible. Everyone's looking at me. Okay. I said, well, don't tell me. Can you say it to that teacher? Imagine you can say it to that teacher. All right. So you want to express the unexpressed to the perpetrator, should we say, whatever that is. Well, sometimes they'll feel okay doing that. Sometimes they feel scared doing that. So again, follow the feeling. I say to them, if you feel scared saying it, just say that. I feel scared saying this, but you're making me feel, or it could be to a parent. I can't say that, I feel guilty. Well, tell them that first of all. Mom, Dad, I feel guilty saying this, but, and off you go. Okay. but it's really important most of the time to say it to direct to where it's coming from. Is that okay, everybody? Because they'll try and say it to you, and you want to say, no, don't tell me, tell them, tell him, tell her, tell the class, tell the school, tell work, tell whatever it is. And that would be far more powerful. The challenge here is if you see an opportunity to do this and you jump in too quickly, you might be dealing with it up here when if you've got more time, you could probably get down here. All right. So I'd just wait for this as long as possible. Hold on as long as possible. Okay. I think I said last time, didn't I, about the SAS holding out, hold out as long as you can before you do these things, because you never know if the client's going to really reveal something else. So you hopefully you've all read through this anyway. But so I normally say things like, if you could be there once again, what would you really like to say? Don't tell me, you just say it to them. Okay. Imagine you're there once again. Pretend you're there once again. They're right in front of you. Okay.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt. It's Hayley.
Hello, Hayley.
I can't resist telling you this really sweet story. It's just this expressed and unexpressed. A lady came to me the other day, somebody I know, I've been doing a few sessions with. She was told she was tone deaf when she was 9, and I've been working with this lady for a long time. And she's very interested in getting into the reasons why she's panics when she thinks she can't hear the notes. And she said that the singing teacher was called Miss Birch. And I thought, I know what might be helpful here is, I said, yeah, change the R to a T, and what have you got? And she said, Miss Bitch. She said, I really like that. And I said, well, go on, tell her. And she started calling her Miss Bitch, and she really enjoyed it. And she stormed into the room. This idea of with raw emotive content. And that was really useful to her. And she had a right go at her in the room. But she said she found that really helpful, changing the name. But I kind of guided her because I felt like she felt unable to. She was saying, being very polite going into this room, talking to this singing teacher.
That sounds good. I'd probably do a similar thing. That's a great idea.
Oh, I didn't know if it was overstepping the mark, but
yeah, some people just need a bit of support, bit of nudge that way.
Yeah. And she sort of went with that, and then sort of let rip, really, and it really kind of really helped her.
Yeah.
Just to kind of know that somebody's on their side,
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes if you can bring humor into it as well, because she probably laughed at the same time. I'd imagine that often happens when you can find some humor in that as well.
Yeah, she did. She did make her laugh, but she was able to. Because she's quite sort of tightly wound anyway. So I think permission to sort of swear a bit. And she did a bit of swearing as well. Since we changed the R to a T, she kind of felt like she had permission to just be a bit blue. And I think it really helped her.
Excellent. No, good. Yeah, well done. Yeah, no, it's a good point, because the client won't always be able to do it. So sometimes you've got to help them out there. I try not to get involved myself, because sometimes you're feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe you've gone through that, really? And you want to say everything that the client should be saying. So I always hold back if I can and let it come from the client first. But sometimes they just need a bit of help, So yeah, that's a good example. So remember that the aim is to help the client get rid of those feelings and ideas that have been locked in, stuck inside in some way, things they've never been able to say. That's what we call it, expressed and the unexpressed. Okay. And then the next bit, when you're doing that, if it's appropriate, is to give back the feeling. Let's go through that for a moment. Again, I have no idea if other people do this, but I was so annoyed on the client's behalf one day. I just spontaneously wanted them to be able to give it back to the person who was causing it. So I always do this as like, take a big deep breath, gather that feeling up inside and just give it back to where it came from. Okay, give it back to the persons where it came from. Now I know in all the spiritual books they say forgiveness and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know. But you can't do genuine forgiveness and stuff if you hold resentment. Okay, so I found if you can help someone let go of resentment, hurt, anger, betrayal, all this kind of stuff, help them express it, verbalize it, let go of it, first of all, even give it back to where it came from. It allows things to move on, and then a deeper healing can occur. Okay, but there's another bit to this, that the main thing that often makes a difference is being able to have someone understand what it's like to be you. Now, Claire's example, that didn't happen, but when it does happen, when the person there can suddenly feel what it's like to be you, something inside feels finally they understand. Okay, so there's a release from inside yourself, and when the person making you feel that way suddenly goes, "Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, sorry." Then there's a huge kind of shift occurs again. So there's these two bits we're aiming for. Don't always get both, okay? But if you get both of them, you often get a very deep release. All right. So that's why I found it really helpful to just have the person give the feeling back. Now, again, sometimes if it's a stranger kind of person who's causing the problem, you might want to give back the feeling to them and let them keep it for the rest of their life, is what some people say. If it's someone you care about, but there's problem, but you care about them, you might say something like, "Look, give the feeling back. I want you to know what it feels like to be me, but I don't want you to suffer forever. I just want you to know what it feels like, so we can both be free, or so you can never do it again," or something like that. Right? So it's like out of me into the person, and then gone. Right? So you may not want to go through like blame and punishment thing, but you're just shifting the feeling, shifting the energy, and setting it free. Right? Because some people feel uncomfortable doing this, right? Especially if it's someone you care for. Often with parenting, it can be quite tricky. "I love you, but I hate the way you made me feel." Okay, so I get them to say that, right? "I love you, but I hate the way you made me feel in that moment. Yeah, this is what it feels like. I don't want you to suffer forever. I don't want you to feel this way forever. Just know what it feels like, so you never do it again." Okay.
You did this with Renee last week and her mum.
Yes, I did. That's right. Yeah. Well done, Tom. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good idea to mention it, because the client may be feeling bad about doing that. But if you know it's just a passing phase, then it's okay. And I use this phrase, "You gave me all these feelings." Now, I know nobody gives us a feeling. I know that. I get that. Okay. I get that things happen and we internalize it ourselves, but it doesn't feel like that. Right. So I using it within the belief system, what it's like. It feels like someone made us feel that way. So I use that belief to help undo it. Okay. You gave me these feelings. I don't want them anymore. It's a really powerful statement. I don't want to feel this way anymore. Take them back. Okay. So when you take someone through that, what begins to happen is there's then a space inside the client. The subject begins to open up, because they begin to let go of any beliefs that came from what they've been holding on to. And the moment they've tapped into that raw emotive content, been able to express it in some way or other, maybe even give that feeling back, then suddenly that they're no longer the same person anymore. Something's changed. Now, you can just wait and see what happens, or in that moment, if you can get an inkling of what's beginning to change in that moment, you can accelerate it and amplify it. So that's what I call it, powering up the inner voice, because I'm looking for then two statements. I want the client to be able to say one of two things. Okay. I'm not sure if I've written it in the notes. Let me see if I've written it or not. Does anyone know what they are? I want the client to be able to say or What do you think? What do you think would be really, to begin two sentences, two words to begin sentences that would be really powerful? Shift a load of negative stuff. As they come out of that, as they're climbing out of the shithole, to use that phrase the person's using, I want the client to be able to stand up, look at the world and say, what? What do you think? Any ideas? Two things I tend to look for. Don't think clever, but I think really simple. Okay.
It's something like now I can.
Yep, I can is one. What's the other one? I
I
can. Well, yeah, I can or I am. That's simple. Okay. If you can get someone to say that of their own accord, I can or I am, you know that belief's changed. All right. Now you've done this. Now you've said this. Now you've gone through this. Now you've given that feeling back. Now they understand. Now they're different. Now you feel stronger. I think Claire said stronger. Now you feel stronger. What does that begin to mean? And to answer the other question, Emma's question, well, think about where we first started. How does that connect back to where we first started? I am or I can. I'll often say those two words and let them finish the sentence. Think about how we started this. Now you know this. What does this mean? I am or I can. And they say, well, I'm all right, actually. And I can begin to be myself, or I can begin to do what I need to do, or whatever. So that's another way of completing that loop. Okay. That makes sense? Everyone makes sense? Emma, to answer your question in another way, okay? Yeah. You go through all this stuff, and then to link it back, to complete that loop back to where we started. Quite often I'll say, if I've been in a childlike thing, I'll say, imagine you and that young you, hand in hand, looking out on the world. What's that like? How different does the world begin to seem? How does it begin to seem now to you? It feels as if, and I'll say, I can do anything. I can be myself. I can whatever. Or I can begin to, okay? May not be the perfect thing, first of all, just progress. Right? So coming out of that little loop there, we're looking for I am or I can statements. And I may nudge them by saying those beginning of the sentences. I'll never finish it for them. Also, I'll rarely finish it for them unless they need a nudge. Okay, but I will try and get them to finish themselves. So I am or I can, and I'll leave it open like that. Get them to finish it. Yeah. Because whatever they say then is going to be a really powerful self-suggestion, auto-suggestion, mantra, self-hypnosis, whatever you want to call it, that they can take away with them. And begin to integrate into their mind. I am, I can. Rennie had some last week. I can begin to. I think I can't remember what they are at the moment, but those kind of things. Same with Emma. I can begin to allow people to help me. Okay. So that's a way of completing that loop, getting back to where we started. Oh yeah, I say it just there. Okay, I am, I can. Okay. Last little bit, and I'll give us some questions again. So this whole idea about affirmations, the positive thinking world is full of them. So an affirmation is something you are affirming, Affirming is something you're saying, yes, I believe that, I know that to be true. So once a client can begin to perceive and believe that these ideas are true, then you can do the real meaning of an affirmation, which is reminding yourself, just driving it home. There's no or less resistance there. Okay. But if there's any discomfort or reluctance, that's not really an affirmation. That's like a wishful thinking. So I'll dig back into the fear behind it, right? The resistance. Right? So what we're looking to do is make sure as they come out of this, we can get a real, true affirmation statement. Not something they would like to be true but don't feel it. Something they can say truthfully. Right? So I'll always check in. As you say those things, what's it like? Notice how it feels. Notice how your body feels. I was doing it with this stop smoking client I did the last thing yesterday afternoon here. I was just checking in. Say, right, say that back to me now. Notice how your body feels. Looking for twitches, resistance, tensing, clenching, all these kind of things. So let's complete the loop. There we go. The way, really, just to finish this last little bit for you, is you've taken the client on a journey. Something within them has begun to change in some way, right? And what you're looking to understand is, now we've done that, what does it mean about that? Okay. And if you're not sure, you just ask them, right? Now you can begin to think, feel, and believe this. What does it mean about this, this, and this? And that's how you complete that loop. Right. So putting it back all together, I'm hopefully you're beginning to realize, Claire was saying that you're beginning to realize how powerful this is. Yeah. I'm just thinking that the look the woman gave me on Saturday morning. It's hard to describe it. Okay, when someone comes out of a session like that, and it's just the deepest gratitude you could possibly imagine of having, because one of the things was being able to stand in front of people, and because she'd had some horrible experiences of that. And as I was chatting to her afterwards, she actually stood up in front of the whole group, the class here, and was just telling people how different she was feeling. She suddenly realized she was stood up in front of a group of people talking. She said, I don't have the shakes. She said, I've had the shakes for 45 years. I don't have the shakes. And that look in someone's eye, and she just looked, and I was welling up a bit of tears. I was thinking, don't say any more, because I'm going to start crying too. Okay, right? Everyone's laughing, but it's hard to convey the deep level of transformation you can create in someone when you do this. All right. So it's such a deep and profound journey you can take people on in a very short space of time. And if you can understand why it's happening, then you don't need to follow rules and scripts and word for word. You can just follow the principles and just put your personality into it, and just keep that person roughly on track, and they'll have these deep shifts. Okay, so
Andrew, sorry, it's Emma. This
Okay.
might be a really stupid question. I don't know if I'm like, maybe
Sorry.
I am.
All
missing
questions
it.
are good. It's all right. Okay.
But with this kind of thing, obviously, I can see how powerful it is, and it really makes sense. But is there anything that you wouldn't use this for? So I know there's more sort of solution based. Would this be ideal to use? Is everything going to go back to something, or
Well, okay,
it's
this is.
not? I don't know. Sorry if I'm like.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Covered this,
The
but
thing is that why I try and emphasize the idea of a belief, concept, idea. Okay, when I'm trying to describe this, I'm not saying, I'm trying to avoid saying memory, right? Because you can get hooked in the idea that you have to go back into the cause. When you start doing regression and you see how powerful it is, you begin to think, well, we better do everything as a regression. Okay, and you don't need to do that. It's the belief someone is holding on to with emotion wrapped around it. That's the problem. So this is a way of doing that. There are many ways of doing that. If somebody wanted to just do a little nail biting session, I wouldn't necessarily do this. Okay. However, when somebody tells me, I've been biting my nails, I've been stressed and anxious for 40 years, and I've got really low self-worth and low self-esteem, then I probably would do this. So
how do you figure out what is the best route
that's a good
to go with someone?
that's a good question. Okay. Right. So what I tend to say is, the more emotional someone is when they're talking about their problem, the more likely I'm going to go down this route. Okay. The more surface level habitual it seems to be, the more solution focused I tend to go. That makes sense at a very simple level?
Yeah, definitely.
I've often
So if
tried
someone
to.
just wanted to stop biting the nails, if it was just pissing them off because the nails
Yeah.
look ugly,
Yeah.
there's no emotion. It's like, I just want to stop paying to get my nails done. I just
Yeah,
want to
that's right.
stop biting them. How do I do it? And
Yeah.
you dig a little, there's no emotion, it's literally, I just want longer nails.
Yeah.
If then, like you say, the words are coming out, or emotions, or some mention, I've always done this, you know, when I used to feel nervous when I was younger.
Yeah, that's it.
Then you might dig a little more and use something like this.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you look at. But in the chat, you part of what you're trying to figure out in the conversation is how far down that you flow thing do we need to go? Can we just make it very symptom focused, very solution focused? Or has this person been through 15 years of trauma and we need to sort that out for them to really set them free? You know, I'm using extreme examples, but you're spot on there. Yeah. So when you ask the questions, you're trying to figure out. One lady wanted to stop biting nails. She said she worked for the British government selling, what she used to sell? Something for the British government. So her job was hanging around with heads of state from countries all around the world. She said, it's really embarrassing holding the champagne at these meetings, and I have to keep having my hand like this. All I want is to be able to hold the glass like that. Okay. And she wasn't really into, she was a high flyer, super successful. She said, I've just always bitten my nails. Be really nice not to. Okay. So that was very solution focused with her. Another guy said to me, we're having a school reunion with a load of mates. He said, I'd love to be able to open a can of beer with my own fingers. I can't, because I've got these stubby bits of flesh at the moment. I want to be able to have nails so I can pull a can of beer open. Okay. He didn't want loads of therapy. He just said, I just want to stop biting my nails. So yeah, it's a good point. Which is why when you're questioning, you're looking out for emotional hotspots, or is it habitual? Is it habit? Is it emotion? Is it a bit of both? Right. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Good question. I have in the past tried to create a flowchart. I've got a video somewhere of it, I think, where we said, right, if a client says this, you go this way. If a client says that, they go that way. Then if they say this, you go this way and that way, and try to put it together, but it got so complicated. It's hard to predict. But yeah, the more emotional they discuss things, the more likely you are to do analytical regression. Okay. But you don't need, it doesn't have to be a regression to memories, it's just uncovering the beliefs and the feelings within them. Okay. So conversation, looking for feelings, let's assume we're doing regression stuff. Conversation, looking for emotional hotspots, follow that feeling, just get them talking, get them describing for as long as you can within that session. Even if it goes off all sorts of tangents, just get them expressing, because you'll get layers and layers of beliefs coming up. If you come to a very specific scene or situation, I think Rennie this week, at some point, I remember, Rennie, you said there's things I just wanted to say, never got a chance to say. And in my mind, I was thinking, right, we could do the inner child right now, but I thought I've still got some time. Let's keep going for a bit to see how far we can get. So I made a mental note to come back to that, but carried on to see what else we could figure out in the meantime. All right. So keep that going as long as you can. Use an inner child approach if it's useful. Get the client to express whatever they're going through. If it's appropriate, give back those feelings. As they do that, notice how different they feel. What does it begin to mean about what you're thinking now, what you're feeling now? I don't want to feel this, but I can begin to feel this. Connect that back to what they first came for. Now you begin to think about this. What does it mean about this? Right? You've taken the client on a really, really quite a powerful journey. All right. So it can seem like this session is open-ended, but there are little definite checkpoints you're trying to get to. And how you get to them, who knows, right? But if you keep asking the client those questions, their mind knows where they need to go to. All right. And there's these little checkpoints you can work your way through. And if you do jump in too quickly and heal things too quickly and fix things too quickly, all it means is the next session, you just go down another level the next session. Right? So. Last little bit, just aware of time. Okay, I know I'm talking a lot tonight, but just want to fill in some details so when you do practice things, you've got some extra little fine-tuning things you can do. This little healing bathroom, sometimes call it bathroom scene, healing safe place scene. If someone's gone through a scene or a situation where in any way they feel things like unclean, dirty, violated, that kind of thing, these are things people have been through, usually some kind of, when there's been a sexual thing in some way, often feel unclean and feel dirty. And it doesn't have to be a huge abuse. It can be something very, very simple, but they feel unclean in some way. So taking that client to some kind of cleaning, cleansing visualization can be really, really helpful. I tend to use, imagine a beautiful 5-star luxury bathroom, just you and that little you, loads of bubbles, and they just have them soak in the bath, and just the bath just soaks away and cleans away every cell, everything, just feeling clean and cleansed and renewed, just leaving it all behind. And so, take a bit longer, but when you feel clean and cleansed, and the water can just soak it all away and drain it all away. There's the biggest, warmest, fluffiest towels you can imagine, wrapping that little you in the towels, and there's some really lovely, beautiful, brand new clothes, and let them just put these lovely clothes on so they feel new, special, new once again. And that can be a really lovely way of helping take someone from a horrible situation where they've let go of all the feelings, they've done all that, but they just feel a bit of an ickiness still, and cleaning all that. So you have to make the scene appropriate, because a bathroom may not be appropriate. Let's say someone was abused in a bathroom, you don't want to take them to a bathroom. I think of like a super luxury hotel thing, but you can use a lake or anything that feels safe to that client. If you're not sure what to do, ask the client. What would be a really lovely, safe place where you can get really clean? See what they say. Okay. I'll throw that in like a 2-minute comment. That is completely transformational for many people, by the way. People who've been through sexual abuse, rape situations, that kind of stuff. It can be the final thing that helps them feel clean again, feel new. All right. So don't underestimate the power of that kind of thing. Perhaps that bit gets a different thing. All right, great. I'll tell you what, last little bit for the day. Hopefully that's given you some more nuggets to go through in your next practice sessions, just fine-tuning things, adding a few little bits in. Next time we meet, we'll add a new element in, a new direction of parts therapy, which is another way of doing things, another way of setting the process going. But let's just do a little tiny visualization for you for the last few minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share a minute. All right. Is everyone quite comfortable? If you can make yourselves comfortable, just sit back for a moment. I know it's late. I know if you're fed, great. If you're not, your tummy's rumbling. Mine is. It's rumbling right now. Comes out on recording sometimes. I have to edit out the tummy rumble. It's embarrassing. So you just close your eyes now when you're ready. Okay. And just take a few moments just to slow down, just to settle down. Nice and easily, nice and gently. Slowing down your breathing. Slightly slower, slightly deeper. Drawing the breath down into your tummy area. As you breathe out, just letting go. Accepting for a little while that, nobody wants anything from you. Nobody expects anything. There's nothing whatsoever for you to do. Except just take some time for you. Just kind of feel, sense all the muscles loosening, as if every single cell in your body can just breathe a sigh of relief for a while. Just let go. And that's okay. From the top of your head down to the very tips of your fingers and the very tips of your toes. Your front, your back, your middle, your arms, your legs. Everything just letting go. It's like as if you could hand over control of your body to your body just for a while. And that's okay. And over the past few weeks and months, you've been gathering so much information, but actually through the whole of your life, you've been gathering so much information. Integrating it, assimilating it into how you can use that going forward. That's what our minds do all the time. You know? Sometimes there can be so many different possibilities, and that can be incredible, or it can be overwhelming sometimes. But for a moment right now, think of something in your life that's causing you some kind of irritation, annoyance, frustration. It usually is when there's something or someone you want to be different than how they are. So put it in these terms for a moment. Someone or something is being or acting or behaving in a way that's causing you annoyance, frustration, irritation. And you want them to be different. If only they would be like this. And think of that, wanting them to be different, wanting them to understand, wanting them to know what it's like to be you, so that you can feel better, you can feel different in some way. If only they would just be how I want them to be, or do what I want them to do, something like that. Think about that for a moment. As you do that, just choose one of your hands and clench your hand really tightly, like clenching a fist. And imagine that you've got a fistful of sand and you're clenching it so tightly, and really squeeze your fingers, your fingernails into your palm of your hand as you're doing this. Feel the tension as you're doing this. That whole person, the persons, the situations, whatever it is, that tension you're holding on to, wanting them or it to be different. And as you think about that for a moment, just imagine what it could be like for you if you could just let go of wanting them to be different for a moment. Just allowing them or it to be exactly as they are, it is. Just letting go of wanting it to be different for a moment. As if you're just relaxing your hand now, just opening your hand. As if all that tension and frustration and desire and wanting it to be different, you just let it go. Like a releasing sand through your fingers. Just let it go. Just let go of the wanting them to be different. Just let it go. And let everything just be exactly as it is for a moment. And just notice how still you can begin to feel. Notice how calm you can begin to feel when you completely let go of wanting it to be different. And if you notice your mind saying, yeah, but that's clenching the hand again, so that's okay, but just notice it and say, yeah, what if I could just let go of that as well? What if I could just let go of wanting them to be different, change in some way? Just let them be exactly as they are. Just let it go. And that feeling of letting go of it is the feeling you think you'll get by wanting them to change or be different. But you can have that feeling right now. Just realize, remember, you can have that feeling right now. Anytime you choose to let go of wanting or needing things to be different for you to feel okay, you can have that feeling right now. There's a really lovely phrase, comes from a book called The Course in Miracles. I choose peace instead of this. I choose peace instead of this. I use it all the time. I know this inkling of frustration. I choose peace instead of this. Question what's going on, realize it, let it go. I choose peace instead of this. Just like letting the sand run through your fingers. I choose peace instead of this. And then just notice how, when you do that, and when you practice doing this, just notice how your mind will often come up with different perspectives, different possibilities, different solutions, different ideas. Something that seemed bothersome and troublesome can suddenly seem like it just doesn't mean so much anymore. Or a new idea, a new way of thinking will come to mind, or a new possibility, or even a strength, a power to do something different within yourself. So many possibilities can arise. When you let go of wanting it or needing it to be a certain way and find peace in yourself, it's incredible what can begin to happen. And you can remember that. And if it's okay with you, my voice will go with you, just helping you, reminding you, encouraging you, supporting you reassuring you. Anywhere it's appropriate, anywhere it's useful. And just reminding you to be kind to yourselves and patient to yourselves, with yourselves and with others. Just letting go, like sand just falling through your fingers. And that's all we're doing with our clients, helping them just let go of stuff they don't need anymore, so they can feel lighter and freer. And that's okay. So now just take a few moments, just nice and easily, nice and gently. When you're ready, just bring your thoughts more back to this place, this time, this room. Let's take a deep breath when you're ready, and let your eyes open, just right here, right now, just coming all the way back. Cool, good. Everyone okay? Get the feel of that? Yeah. Got nail marks on my hand now. Doing that for real, okay. You had your eyes closed, so did I, because I can get into it more if I do that with my eyes closed. I can do it with the client sometimes. If it's appropriate, I just be there in that zone with them. Okay. You get the idea of that fist of sand thing. I think Sarah was asking earlier. Does that make sense now, everybody? How that can be useful, right? It doesn't always work as a long-term cure that a problem will disappear. But if someone is persistent with that, it will help gently allow something to fall away. I got that idea from the Sedona method. Any of you familiar with the Sedona method? I just took the principles of that and put it into a visualization I quite like myself, my own little version of it. But the Sedona method is based on the whole idea of letting go of wanting something to be different, okay? On the principle that the very thing we think we want, we get when we let go of wanting it. Right. That note, I'll let you get on with your evenings. Unless there's any questions, any comments. Anybody want to ask anything at all?
Just on that note there, I listen to quite a lot of Abraham Hicks podcasts. And that is exactly what she does, is when you focus on anything you want, you have to focus on the emotion of how it makes you feel at the end.
Yeah.
Focus on the emotion of how you want to feel.
Absolutely, yeah. There's another phrase that I can't remember where I put it in the notes, but whatever feeling drives a behavior will tend to create more of the same feeling. All right, think about this one. And I say this to clients a lot. Whatever feeling initiates or drives the behavior will just create more of that same feeling. So if you go into a situation with stress and anxiety, even if you cope with that situation, you're setting yourself up for more stress and anxiety, because that's what your mind is associating with it. Anytime you can find peace and calm in the middle of a storm, right, you can come out of that storm and find a way through. People who panic and do desperate things in the middle of chaos will usually end up in more desperation and more chaos. Doesn't mean everything's going to be okay, but if you can find peace, calm, or like Renee said, a positive feeling within a difficult situation, and let your behaviors come from that feeling, you're far more likely to create the positive outcome you want. All right? So I often tell that to clients too. Whatever feeling drives behavior, like if they start telling me something, I'll just say that to them. You know what? Whatever feeling drives behavior tends to create more of the same. So think about what you just told me. What do you think about that? And I tend to go, okay, all right. So what's the different feeling? Then we start chatting that way. Okay. So. Good. Any other questions? Good point, by the way. Thanks. We all good. So more practicing with this on Wednesday with Debbie, and then after this week, then we'll switch it up a bit and we'll move on to the next bit, and we'll do a bit of parts therapy and that kind of thing. See how that can connect with all these things, start to go together. Next week I can do a demo just to before we talk about it. So if anybody's up for something bubbles up during the week, just let me know. I'll have a quick chat about the part stuff, and then we'll just quickest way to explain that really is just to show you. And so message me in the week if you're up for it. If not, we'll just see what happens and do it spontaneously when we get there. So okay, everyone. Thank you. Well done, everybody. I check in with Debbie, so I always hear how you get on with the practice sessions. I check in with the vets when I get on with coursework and stuff. So anything, don't struggle, don't suffer in silence. If you're struggling with anything, just ask. Right? It's not a test. It's not school anymore. Okay, we just want it to be all right. So just ask. Okay. All right. See you next week. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.